right, awesome. I'll get started and we'll bring some people up. Cool. All right, hello everybody. So yeah, we had some issues with Twitter Spaces on Friday. It was down doing some upgrades. I started doing some tinfoil hat because the Twitter files was meant to release all the COVID stuff, but haven't seen any of that yet. Mainly focused on FBI and Hunter Biden stuff and all that jazz. So yeah, just wanted to cover a few topics. If you haven't had a chance yet, you're probably all Twitter spaced out and content crazy. The amount of content to consume has just been pretty wild since Twitter Spaces has really gone viral. So feel free at some stage to catch up with the 2022 year in review, but I'm sure you've got much more important things to do with your family and loved ones. Remember to spend that special time with your family and loved ones, and remember what's important in life, because we're pretty. It's been a pretty crazy year, but it's a good time, I think, to remember what the most important thing is. So I'll just review a few topics and a few updates, and then we'll bring some people up, and we can share a few ideas and make it not so formal. Final week before Christmas and all. Okay, so the news today was that Binance has signed an agreement, which they want it to try and complete by March, to acquire Voyager. So if this is good news for you, anyone in the Voyager, massive congratulations. Obviously, it's very, very interesting that Binance is kind of going through what it's going through right now, and I really, really hope for our industry and for yourself that there's no crazy more black swan events. I don't know if the Voyager UCC asked for the audit report, but I don't think they could get one in order to complete the transaction. But let's see what happens. I think the crypto market's a bit short on auditors at the moment. So that happened. A bit of confusion. I think people think that Binance paid $1 billion for it. That's how it was framed with the FTX bid as well. They said it was 1.4 billion, but when you drill into it, essentially they're buying the crypto for the haircut price of crypto. We'll get more details on this so we can understand how an in-kind distribution might work in the Celsius case. But the way it was working with FTX, and I imagine that this is just, it was actually a worse deal than what SBF was going to do to hide his fraud. But obviously this is done through Binance. So it's actually lowered the deal from what it was before, but more details to follow. And I get the sense that at this stage, if you're in Voyager, people just want whatever's left. They want to move on. Everyone's fatigued. Everyone's had enough. So if this is good news for you, then congratulations. I really hope you get through this as fast as possible. But the way these deals typically work is the way it was going to be working with FTX. It even sounds crazy even saying that FTX was doing a deal before. But the way it typically works is you pull together all of the assets and any price performance by one of the assets relative to the other. So there's I think there's hundreds of cryptocurrencies in the Voyager case. They put them all together into one estate, and then they had a mechanism for using the 20-day volume weighted average price in order to haircut them. And then if they weren't supported on the FTX exchange, they dollarized them into USD. And then they just wiped out the VGX and tried to auction off the VGX, the native token for Voyager. In the Celsius case, interestingly, you've probably seen some fishing around from community members that are looking to investigate more into the Cell token. Maybe if that person wants to acquire the Cell token as an asset of the estate in order to take over the Cell community, then feel free. There's probably about 100 of them left, and they seem to be falling one by one and going down in numbers. But yeah, feel free to do that. And you know, that would just be an asset for the estate. So with the Voyager auction before, they were looking to try and sell all the Voyager tokens for someone that wanted to buy it for about, with a 10 million minimum, I think it was. They had a market cap of over, you know, similar to what Cell token is. So it just becomes one of the assets. And if there's somebody that wants to build a community around that token, maybe it becomes a meme token in the future, and a tribute to, you know, Alex Maszynski. Maybe we can, someone wants to take up the challenge and buy that token as one of the assets of the estate. So yeah, they typically would, you know, have a way of haircutting you. And so when it was framed as 1.4 billion, they meant that there's 1.4 billion of cryptocurrency. And so they added that to the sale price, 1.4 billion. But essentially that was free money because they were receiving $1.4 billion of cryptocurrency. Because obviously no one's going to pay a premium for an asset that's liquid. You know, so if a cryptocurrency, you know, if you were trying to value a cryptocurrency into your business when completing a merger and acquisition, you wouldn't, you know, typically, you know, an asset would sell at a multiple times its book value. So you might get 2 to 10 times its book value, depending on the value of the market. But with cryptocurrency, because it's a liquid market in theory, especially Bitcoin and ETH and some of the higher up ones, then no one would pay a premium or a multiple to book value. You'd expect it to just be the book value, which is the live market price, which is constantly moving. So they come up with formulas on how to calculate that. And then they execute a haircut, but most likely give you the same cryptocurrency. That's how it was going to be done with Voyager and FTX. In the SBF deal, he was going to pay 50 million, and Binance has lowered that to 20 million. Which is really just a way of covering more of the Vulture professional fees, to give the founders and the company additional protections, which you know, we've found out and we've experienced that Chapter 11 is really just a process in order to give the debtor and the advisors a shit ton of money and a bunch of protections, and then you essentially execute the equivalent of a Chapter 7 liquidation, and hopefully you get it payment in kind because of these new crypto cases. But you mess around for about 6 months pretending there's going to be a reorg and various other things. And then in the end, they just sell off the assets anyway and trying to negotiate. And then Kirkland and Ellis just try and negotiate in the protections that they can get. So it's really important in our case anyway with Celsius, that we make sure that we hold on to some of the valuable assets given some of the activity of the founders, which was released today. So thank you for Tiffany for information from the Celsius, the infamous Celsius employee, that seems to be a loyal employee inside Celsius that we're paying for. But at least one employee inside Celsius is doing some good work, and giving Tiffany some information so that we've got what essentially we'll probably be finding out about on the 17th of January 2023 in order to ensure that we've got an additional valuable asset to the estate when the examiner report comes through. So yeah, back to the Voyager anyway. So Binance will be acquiring it. It's paying 20 million. 20 million go to the professionals, probably, as we all know. And so essentially, it's almost like a Chapter 11 reorganization, what I'm calling a Chapter 7 in kind, which is that you mess around for about 6 to 10 months, pay as much as you can to the lawyers, negotiate as much protection from the previous debtors' employees to continue to be employed so that they can pretend that they're building some new kind of reorg. And then you essentially liquidate and figure out a payment in kind methodology if you sell it to a company like Binance. And hopefully they'll get a similar thing, which in the Voyager side, the haircut was estimated to be about 70%. And maybe CZ will do some innovative stuff, but we'll see. You know, I'm really I really think that most people have just reached that phase where they're looking to get out, they're looking to cut their losses, they're looking to move on. And the funny thing is if we had just gone straight to, there's been so much learning from this. I think the first thing I learned is that we were all wrong. We were all deluded. And if we had just, liquidated some of the cryptocurrency early on and then distributed it in kind, we probably could have done really well because the markets crashed so much. But who knew that was going to happen? Hindsight's 2020. But the new lesson is that, in my perspective, Chapter 11 is just a horse and pony scam show where they pretend a bunch of stuff, and really, it's just a way of selling the assets and just scamming as much money out of the estate as possible along the way. It's been a hugely educational experience for all of us. But we'll see exactly what comes next. I've been posting a few more tweets there. So that's the Voyager Binance situation. Something for us to learn from as we go through this experience. Also, you get an indication of time frames. I think CZ said that it's as earliest looking to be March. So from execution of a deal, you're looking at about 4 months of execution. And we also got the announcement on the Celsius side. We did everything at Bank to the Future that we said we're going to do. We met our deadlines. I can't discuss the specifics of the bidding process, but I've given lots and lots of indications around exactly the types of deal that I think is right for creditors. And that involves a bit of innovation. And we think Chapter 11 is the anti-innovation department, is really just about the cash bid process. I made a commitment not to predatorily acquire assets. And so therefore I'm sticking to everything we said we're going to do. Because one thing we have seen on crypto Twitter, when you lie and you say things that you don't end up doing, the community tends to figure this stuff out. So I'm sticking to my word. Hopefully people can see that I've stuck to what I said I'm going to do, and I'll continue pushing until the very end along those lines of what I think is the most important thing, which is that some level of innovation is required in order to deliver everyone's whatever's coins are left to everybody in custody, and whatever securities I think they should be distributed. Notice that INX was in the bid and Binance won. That's because they favor the cash process, if you can read anything into it. So, rather than giving shares to creditors, certainly in the case of Voyager, they'd rather take cash from predators, essentially. And that's the way that Chapter 11 is kind of designed. It's slightly different with Celsius because obviously we had additional assets, which we've got to try and figure out what to do with. If I had my way, the shares would all be issued to creditors, and then the company, if it needs additional funding, which the mining company certainly would, then a rights issue happens where those that really believe in the mining operation, they can take some of their credits and invest it into the mining operation, or new investors can come along, and if it can't raise finance on the free market, then it certainly shouldn't be forced into creditors paying for it involuntarily by selling our coins, because some people might just want their Bitcoin or their ETH or whatever there is back. They shouldn't be forced to sell those in order to involuntarily invest, which is the process of a reorg. And I don't think anyone's ETH should be used as staking income for the company. I think everyone should get their ETH back and they should be able to stake themselves. And if they want to put it into a custody service, that should be a voluntary transaction, with whichever type of company you'd want to use in order to execute those staking. Okay, so that's the update on those ones. You obviously saw on my tweets where I was trawling through some of the court documents in terms of all the rate increases. We got a lovely Merry Christmas and Happy New Year present from all the lawyers and all of the advisors in Chapter 11. They all gave us a beautiful gift of a rate increase. And so, they didn't make enough. They need to try and extort another 55 million out of the estate. So, they need to continue this process a little bit longer. So, 6 months is not enough time to come up with a business plan. They've been given a deadline of the 15th of February to do that. They need a couple more months for Celsius to come up with a plan. And they also wanted to, they couldn't get the deadlines met with the bidding process to try and have it all done this year, which I predicted and forecasted anyway. Trying to run an auction in December when everyone's unwinding is a pretty crazy task, and a no-go in the first place. No investment bank would do that if they weren't just rinsing someone else's money. So if you were just an investment bank and you were taking out money from the estate and you have a blank check, then you might do something as stupid as announcing that you're gonna end your auction 2 days before Christmas. But if they were actually incentivized just by performance rather than hourly rate, then they probably wouldn't do something as stupid as end an auction 2 days before Christmas, thinking that everyone's going to be working till the final hours and you're going to get the maximum value in the worst market in the Christmas 2 years before halving. But they'll continue to charge on those hourly rates to us. Obviously, they managed to sell GK8, which probably cost us more than 44 million to sell. But they'll try and chew through some more of that in this lovely process that they call Chapter 11, full of all sorts of innovative mechanisms just to figure out how to pay more lawyers, pay more professionals. So they applied for that. There's a bunch more to come. But here's the nice news, if good news, if we can give it, is that we know our deadlines now. And I think we should really exercise our full force as creditors to make sure everyone sticks to these deadlines. So we've got deadlines. I put on my tweet the new bidding timetable. The timetable, goes throughout January. This is where bidders are bidding on what essentially Celsius wants to do, which is sell all their assets, but they pretend that they're trying to create a business just in case the bidding process doesn't work for any reason. And in case they don't submit a business plan on time, the UCC has said, you got till the 15th of February to give us a business plan. Otherwise, we're taking over. So really translate that as you should. And that is, it's what we all knew along, which we figured out months ago if you were watching some of our spaces, that everything is actually engineered around extorting as much value out of the estate and getting through the bidding process and selling off the assets so that Kirkland and Ellis can try and negotiate the best protection. It's all in the name, Chapter 11 protection. The company puts itself into protection so that it can figure out how to essentially, the Department of Justice, rather than paying on their own bill, they use the estate in order to pay for their investigation and the examiner investigation, rather than, and then what do creditors do? Well, creditors have to try and crowdfund some money together to pay for their ad hoc representation. So we pay the bill, even though we're the ones that have been taken out in terms of our funds, and everyone else that's defending and working against us uses the estate. And obviously we're given the UCC, and everyone's really just incentivized around a push delay. There's fiduciary duties, obviously, but that's the Chapter 11 scam as far as I can see it. I think really in hindsight, if I was starting this process from scratch, I think the company needs to do what we did way back in the day. So, when you're dealing with a company, if it's non-fraudulent, if it's not running illegal securities exchanges and illegal banking operations, and offering illegal securities and illegal custody services, then really you should do the self-reorg process like we did with Bitfinex, and work towards a financial innovation solution. But once you enter into Chapter 11, it seems like you've got a lot of shit that you need to protect yourself from. And you need the creditors to pay for that for you so you can protect yourself a bit further. And let's just stop the whole pretense that we're trying to relaunch the company and stuff, and just accept that it is what it is, which is those that pay the highest cash. And it's essentially a Chapter 7 process. So why not just put it in Chapter 7 in the first place, is my real question. The answer is because they need to get the additional protections and they need all the things that they want us to pay for. Yeah, that's the
Simon,
beauty
may I
of
ask a question?
Go for it. Yeah. Hey, Dylan.
I'm sorry to just jump in, but what I don't understand is why. And again, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't understand why would the UCC, on 3 separate occasions now, what is their incentive to screw everybody?
There's no incentive to screw everyone. I don't think anyone's out to screw everyone. It's just they're playing the process of Chapter 11, and the process of Chapter 11 is a bunch of lawyers and professional service providers come along and they all go like crazy to try and bid on being the service provider because it's a blank check operation.
But why wouldn't it be severely against?
No, there's a couple of reasons though, right? We talked about this in the past. One is to protect the from the preferred equity shareholders, right? If you don't present that you have a plan going forward, you can't extend exclusivity, which means you can't protect from the preferred shareholders. And the other reason is just for the bidding process. You want, they already kind of talked about this on the town halls that, if they don't extend the if they don't extend exclusivity, then it could be a free fall, and the UCC doesn't want that, right? And the best way to extend exclusivity is to make it really seem like you have a plan that you're working on, and that's kind of how I'm seeing it.
So you're saying the UCC's least worst option is to play along.
No, the game is following D-Long from the way that I see it. Again, this is just my experience of being intertwined between the whole process. The process is the bidding process. That's the real process. Then just in case the bidding process doesn't work out, you might need to fall back upon the company actually figuring out how to liquidate and give everyone their funds back. And if that doesn't work out because you don't get that reorg plan, then the UCC needs to take over and everyone needs to be ready with their plan just in case something doesn't work in the process. And so everyone's hoping that the bid is what actually happens. But just in case something goes wrong, like you don't have any bidders or something, yeah.
What happens? But here's another question I have, Simon. And I'm sorry. I think this is real. I'm sorry for taking up so much time. I think this is very pertinent. You have, by your own words, put up a bid which would have a fighting chance of making us whole, and your bid wasn't good enough. So why would the UCC turn down, or I guess maybe Celsius turns down your bid for another one when you're saying that you can make everybody whole? Is why would that?
I'm not saying I can make everyone whole. What I'm saying is I want to give everyone what coins they have left, and I'd like to give everyone the equity in all the assets that were purchased with our money. And then if you've got a mining company that's not profitable, and it needs 200 million in order to succeed, let's say, theoretically, then you could do a rights issue and people could voluntarily invest rather than be forced to invest. And so that requires a level of financial innovation. And if you don't want to take that risk, then you just accept a cash bid, because then you can just be done with this process and negotiate a release to the people that need the release, i.e. the protection that they're looking for.
Last question, because I've already abused this by jumping in. Do you see, or can you talk about it, or is there a bid better than yours out there right now as far as the creditors are concerned? As much as you can talk about it. I'm done.
Yeah, I can't talk about the bidding process. So you just got to remember that it's a game of risk. Analyzing what's better is really, I'm not saying that giving everyone their shares and giving everyone their coins over a cash bid is a better bid. But one comes with a bit more risk and gives people the ability to potentially be made whole if the equity performs, whereas the other locks in your loss, but gives everyone the certainty of cash, so you just know exactly where you are. And my experience is that the bidding process tends to favor lower risk and cash. And any any request towards innovation tends to only be something they do if they have to, which is what I'm expecting and what I'm predicting. I'm not saying that's all going to happen. Maybe Celsius is the first case where it doesn't go down that path. I'm just saying my faith in the process is a lot lower than when I originally started, because what I originally thought Chapter 11 was for, and I was completely wrong. What I originally thought Chapter 11 was for was to enter into a process to try and get a much better result for creditors. What it turns out it is it's a way of getting creditors to pay all the bills and then sell off all the assets after months and months of horse and pony shows, when you could have just sold them off straight away if you were using international courts through a liquidation process. And even the international process, like the Mt. Gox one, you could still get payment in kind, even though it was going through a liquidation, because they paid out in Bitcoin anyway. But it's just a way of the debtor, really just using creditors' money in order to long out the process. From my experience, maybe I'm over skeptical, but this is completely what I'm seeing. And I'm just trying to be completely honest with everybody so that everybody can manage their expectations around that. I'd love to be surprised, and everyone get their shares and have the potential of a full recovery. I just don't have faith that that's where this goes next. But I've been wrong many times throughout this process. I originally thought that Chapter 11 was about financial innovation. It turns out I was completely wrong on that front. Okay, who else have we got up, Azad? I think we can leave like Plan C. Plan C, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to quickly speak to some of the stuff that Tiffany posted. I haven't looked into myself, but Tiffany had just posted some of the transactions going back to 2018 from some of the insiders. And, at this point, I'm a little frustrated with the UCC that they have not pursued insider clawbacks. I think, every day that goes by gives more time to hide assets. And, when you have hundreds of millions of dollars, it becomes easier to hide assets. So I just think that it's insane that the UCC, it's insane to me that the people the retail that withdrew are having to go to court, raise, a bunch of money themselves and defend themselves in court. And the insiders, they still have not pursued insiders. And then you have people like Daniel Fishberg, who basically, he put in a motion, like, why aren't we going after insiders? And, the UCC blocks that. And then you have, Alex on Twitter, saying Daniel is not, if you support Daniel, you don't support creditors. Well, I mean, Daniel's the one that's saying, like, go after Alex's money, like the stuff that's being withdrawn. And then you have people that are so-called, supporting the community, trying to pay off guys like Daniel, who are bringing to the attention one of the most important things, which is all this insider money that's been removed, right? So as a community, I just think we really need to push for this insider clawback, because like I said, the longer this goes on, the more likely these assets don't come back to the estate. And I guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee anything, but it's looking like there's evidence that it's a good amount of money between all these insiders that's been removed. So I think, yeah, and the good news, I guess the last thing I would say as far as the good news is that, most likely now we're seeing that there is significant capital with these insiders that, they should be clawed back. But beyond that, there's definitely some money there for creditors to go after in lawsuits. Clearly this has to be done.
Yeah, I think so. Again, looking at the Voyager situation, when FTX was going to win the bid, there was the option to hold insider clawbacks and various other things in a liquidating trust, or learn what we saw with GK8 when the judge actually stood up for us. So the judge is very risk adverse, but he certainly, from my experience, does know how to spot a valuable asset, and so. I think he's going to spot with GK8, he made a really strong point of don't let any of these insider, or preferences or anything get bidded out of the creditor's estate. So I think the judge will certainly look out for that. He's pretty sharp on that side. So yeah, and we as a community definitely need to ensure that if any bids go through, what bids go through, that we maintain our right to claw those back as everything progresses.
It's just that like the clawbacks, they could go back 1 year, they could go back up to 3 years if there's fraud, but for sure it'll be 1 year. But we're learning that there's significant capital there. Like, I mean, before any of these time periods, there's capital. So it just, yeah, all I'm trying to say is it seems like there's money there that lawsuits and class actions and whatever else people decide to do, there's going to be money there. It seems to go after. And I mean, it just sits so like it sits so badly with me. Like, it feels so horrible to think that, you have these insiders that are sitting on tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, and you got people living out of their cars, people committing suicide, people having to sell their houses. Like, it's just insane. So I think that, yeah, I'll get off this topic, but like, as a community, I would like to know at this point why the UCC is not pursuing insider clawbacks, because like I said, every single day that goes by gives them more chance to hide these assets, and there's less chance they'll come back to the estate.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no doubt that a bunch of USDC and USD was taken out of the estate and a bunch of Cell token was left in the estate. As we all know, Cell token is the least valuable asset and the only thing that many of the insiders were willing to leave in their accounts. So it's certainly a game of there is a valuable asset to pursue there. And I think, Plan Z, you've always tried to get ahead of these things. So you've always created the groups, and I think you guys have started fundraising for some of the defenses against retail clawbacks and stuff like that. I think your foresight is something that's going to be needed. So I think at some point next year, we're going to be moving towards that stage. So thank you for laying the foundation for that work. Cool. Who wants to? We've got a bunch of people putting their hand up. Azar, do you want to invite some people up?
Okay. Manny's been waiting a while. Manny, would you like to ask your question, please? Manny, if you can hear us. Okay, we'll move over to Craig.
I just wanted Simon's thought on the Binance purchasing of Voyager, and if that's a better deal than what FTX and Binance deal was.
Maybe you didn't miss the beginning, but go back and listen to the recording if you want the full commentary. But from my perspective, it's a better counterparty, but a worse deal. But we haven't got the full details yet. And to be honest, what's the difference between 20 million and 50 million in Chapter 11? It's just a few weeks of pay for the lawyers and the professionals and the advisors. Doesn't really make much difference to creditors.
Do you think Binance is solvent?
I've been given lots of commentary on that side, and there's no way you can endorse any business in this type of environment. I personally believe that the reason that they can't do audits right now is because they had lots of stuff that they did wrong in the past. They've obviously got the illegal securities issue, which many crypto companies have. But whether they're solvent or not, the real answer is we just don't know. The only company we know with some kind of confidence and degree of accuracy is the one that's releasing their audited reports. And Coinbase is a public company, so there we know what should be there. And Binance, we don't know. And nor does the UCC. So they have to take that gamble because there is no such thing as an audited report with Binance at the moment.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Craig. Next speaker is Johan.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Hey, Johan.
Yeah. Hello. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions regarding the interactions with the debtor and UCC. Those who do those interactions, are they actually talking to or interact with the UCC, or is it with the advisors or the lawyers, and the same with the debtor?
Yeah, the UCC themselves, from my experience, don't interact much as the advisors to the UCC.
Yeah.
The debtors they were all buddies of Alex Majinsky. So it's run by the special committee that Alex Majinsky appointed and the CEO that Alex Majinsky appointed.
Yeah, so do anybody interact with them, or is it with Kirkland?
Yeah, I mean, they've all got to hide behind Kirkland.
Yeah, because the way I see it, everything seemed to be scripted via the lawyers. When this Ferraro guy is depositing, and when anybody else does this, they read from scripts that's obviously been written by the lawyers. So the whole, as you say, the whole system is dysfunctional. It can never reach a reasonable outcome because it's driven by and scripted by and designed by people who are incentivized to make the process run longer. And it doesn't matter if they have the best bid the day 2 of this process, they will keep stringing it out because that's how they make their money. And these are the guys who's running it. So it is a
them and the
complete
judge.
insanity
So
to
the judge is the one that's saying, I don't want this strung out, I don't want this going on longer, which is what tends to drive everything towards a cash bid.
Yeah, but again, he keeps saying that, but he takes no action. So I mean, he's in on the game as well. Why did they appoint this fee examiner, for example, which is an old bankruptcy judge, and now he's
if you're looking just at pure incentives, everyone that is deciding in this process gets paid the longer it goes on for.
Yes, it's insane. I don't understand how a process can be designed like that. It's obvious.
It should be results incentivized. So it should be, you get this result, this is the lump sum waiting for you at the end, or somehow like there should be some, maybe you have like a base fee, but then
it should be as a carry work. So if you incentivize a fund manager, you pay them like a 2 and 20, right? You pay them 2% for admin because there is just admin you can't avoid, but their returns are made by a 20% carry, which is an amount over the. So if you were doing this properly, you'd pay all the advisors amount over the Chapter 7 liquidation price. So you'd set a baseline of Chapter 7 liquidation, and then anything that the advisors can achieve above that is where they should be paid. That's how the free market fund management industry works. But it's also why as soon as a company goes into Chapter 11 protection, there's every high-powered advisor in the world that says this is the place to be.
Yeah, but the other thing I wonder is who approves these fees? I find them outrageous. The amount of money, the hourly rate of some of these people involved. They would never achieve that unless they are hired by someone who doesn't pay the bill.
Well, the answer is we have to pay for our own legal counsel in order to object to them. So the creditors are paying the bill, and then if they want to object to it, they have to pay the bill from the buddy company that took the money in the first place.
Yes, of course.
It's such a, honestly, this is why every other country I know of don't have this whole Chapter 11 process. They don't have this reorg process.
No, in principle, I would say it's a reasonable thing. It's just that all the incentives are incorrectly set up.
Exactly.
To skin the people who are actually the victims.
Exactly, and that's why in all of my reorgs, it was all about here's a plan that does better for creditors than just liquidating everything. But it turns out that I don't think we're competing on how to get a better result for creditors.
No, I agree.
I think we're competing on sign the thing that protects the debtor the most.
Yeah, I think it's sad. It's just a comment, and I find it unethical and immoral, the whole process. And I'm sad to say that that incorporates all these advising firms and judge and court and the whole setup. But
yeah,
what can I do about that?
Experience. It's been a huge experience for me.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is, let's bring them up, Shitis Tucker. 1 second.
By the way, I know the tone of the conversation is pretty depressing on the week before Christmas. But what I'd like to focus on once we get through this process is the free market solutions that we as an industry can come up with in order to improve the Chapter 11 process, no matter what the outcome is. And we're going to set our team on those types of initiatives. But I think that, just because the Chapter 11 process reaches a conclusion, I think that the free market and our industry can come up with interesting ways of supporting creditors after the fact. And I'm gonna put a little bit of a working group on that to put together different people in the industry. So I think at the end of the day, the gift that we have been given is that hopefully we're in an extended bear market, and when we get our funds back, we're able to take advantage of the market dynamics. That's what I'm hoping for. But unfortunately, we're gambling around that as well.
Okay. Before I bring on our next speaker, if anyone else would like to jump on the Twitter space and have a question for Simon, please do make a request and we'll add you. I think we've got about 15 minutes remaining, so let's have Shitiz Daka, please. You're next.
Yeah, man, what's up? My main concern is what if Bitcoin price go low? What will happen to the miners if they become not profitable? If it affect the Bitcoin price, because all miners will be shut down.
Well, they switched off from the public information. They switched off 12,000 rigs between September and October already. The mining is not profitable. There's a whole debate because the information that's been given in the public versus the information that's being given to bidders is slightly different. But obviously, Chris Ferraro does an update on business tomorrow, and he is claiming that they can mine profitably if you take out most of the expenses. So try and figure out what that means. But the financials that they do release show that the mining is bleeding. So that's why, from my perspective, it needs investment. And so issuing the shares and doing the rights issue for those that want to invest with full transparent information is the way to maximize the value versus, all of the miners are in massive distress right now. Now, obviously, Bitcoin is designed so that it adjusts, and the difficulty rate always adjusts to make sure that any excess profits or any excess losses are evened out over time. But your concern is really, how do you maximize the value of the fact that, our Bitcoin was used to take out a loan, and we've invested significantly with our money in the mining operation. How do we maximize that? And I don't think that can be maximized through the process that we're going through right now, unless they look at something a bit more innovative than a cash bid.
Okay, next speaker is Ramsey.
Hey guys, how you doing today?
Hey, Ramsey.
So to further comment on the mining thing, I myself am a miner and not Bitcoin prefer. I used to be in Ethereum and everything, but I know for sure, for a fact, that Celsius is not profitable. That Chris Farrow does not know what he is talking about. The operating costs. When you say remove all the expenses from anything, yes, clearly you're going to be making money because you're not paying anything. Like that's clear. But Celsius, their electric costs for mining are just way too high. They're paying hosting facilities for electric costs, and they need to make money as well. And the whole thing from the start was just I have no idea what the management was thinking. Obviously, we all think that alike, but I had to comment on that. But anyways, my question wasn't really about the mining per se. It was more so about the Voyager just acquired, or what was it? Binance just acquired Voyager. Are we kind of thinking anything for Celsius, or what do you think, Simon?
Yeah, so if you get a chance, if you want the deeper analysis, listen to the recording and go back to the beginning.
Yeah, I just
But
joined that.
the Binance deal is what I'm calling a Chapter 7 in kind. Essentially, you just buy the crypto and give people back the haircut crypto, and then you put a little bit more on to pay for the legal fees. So it's the same as a Chapter 7 liquidation, but payment in kind. So it's if Binance wants to do it, it's just a way of getting everyone whatever coins are left, and it's not adding any value to the estate. It's just finding a way of people getting their money, and Kirkland and Ellis getting what they originally wanted, which is to sell the assets and protect the company.
Okay, gotcha. Another thing I was going to say to that question was, do we have any idea how much Voyager users are kind of going to get back on that haircut, or nothing really set per se yet?
Nothing set per se, but from my study, we did an analysis, and I think it's about 70%. With the FTX deal, there was another 2% built in, but then they had to sell off the VGX tokens and various other assets as well, which is an additional process. So if you're in Voyager, my best estimate is you get 70%. You get your funds in Binance, you get to trade them into what you want, you get to walk away, and you get to learn and decide, what you're going to do to rebuild. So we may end up in a similar situation with Celsius. The only difference with Celsius is that we've got some additional assets, and I want to try and get people those assets as equity. And my guess is that Ferraro is, doing what he needs to do in order to sell those assets in the bid. And if they don't get sold for a reasonable price, then they have a backup plan, which they call a reorg, in order to just essentially do the same thing, but distribute the assets. But the problem is that most of the miners and acquirers are in distress right now themselves. So yeah, we'll see. But we saw how it plays out with GK8. So we got the playbook. The playbook is exactly how it played out with GK8. The judge fights for any rights to ensure that those clawbacks and various other things don't get taken away. And then you don't get to vote because they accept a cash bid. The reorg stuff requires a bit of a vote, like the Binance side. And that's really non-controversial because it's just the part of giving people their coins back and locking in the haircut. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for your question, Ramsey. Sorry, we've just got 3 more people that we're going to try and squeeze in the next 10 minutes. So
yeah,
next
I don't mind going a bit more, Azad.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right, then I guess Ramsey's got another final question, hopefully. Actually, he's gone now. All right, let's put on Kirk.
Hey, Kirk.
Kirk, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Kirk.
Cool. Yeah, I just, thank you for putting on this space. I just had a simple question. I've been kind of estimating around 40% is kind of the floor of what we can, as creditors, expecting to receive back, however, in kind or in cash. Is that reasonable? Could we expect maybe more? Like, is 70% too optimistic for us Celsians, or how do
I'm
you
playing
feel?
around with 50% mentally in my mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Bummer. All right. Well, thank you.
No worries. There's, we will still be fighting the process to ensure that, the right bidder takes over the loans and securities can be distributed by the right bidder, and mining gets settled in some kind of equity. We'll still be fighting for that. And if any of those happen, then there's the opportunity for a high risk, high return recovery. But if we just enter into cash bids, then I think we're looking at 50% locked in. And then we start thinking about what life after Celsius looks like and what we're going to do to personally recover, and any free market solutions that we can come up with as an industry as a result of this.
Okay, next speaker is Phil.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, Phil.
Hi, Simon. First of all, before I forget, I hope you and your family and your team, Azad, etc., have a great Christmas because of all the hard work and effort you've put in on behalf of us creditors. So, I really hope that.
Yeah, we will. And then just before you go to the question, everyone has to do that, because the most important thing in life is what's life for if it's not worth living,
Absolutely,
and doing the most important things. So make sure everybody, let's get off Twitter for Christmas. Let's do what's important in life, and let's do what normal people do rather than hanging out on Twitter discussing scammers like Majinski.
Absolutely. Okay, so we were talking. I'm really annoyed with the way that the lawyers are being allowed to milk the Chapter 11 process, but that seems to be a fact of life in Chapter 11. That's what we found out. But all the time during this process, I've been hearing 40-45% return on investment, and now I'm hearing from you 50%. So what has changed? Considering that the lawyers are milking us for all they can do, what's changed to make it up to 50%, Simon?
So Celsius has pulled in some recovery funds from Prime Trust and various other things like that. So there's various assets in the estate that are pulling some stuff in, and Celsius also just seems to magically keep finding some things under the mattress that they didn't put in the previous report. So if you look at the coin reports, magically they seem to keep changing, and it's mysterious that nobody talks about this in court. And for the first time, we actually got the number of coins plus the USD value in public information. And so, but prior to that, you always had to guess it because it was being obfuscated away. So we don't really get information on what those things are, but it could be, various, contracts or something that reached maturity, or they applied in the court in order to pay off one of their DeFi loans in order to get some additional collateral back. But also, I'm factoring in, like in my worst case scenario, which I think is approximately 50%, I'm factoring in that they sell a bunch of assets in distress. That adds on top of just the coins alone. So there are some additional assets that need to be factored in. I think it's important that any of the things that there are assets that can pay off into the future, and I think that needs to be structured in a correct way. Our process, as we always said, was that we'd structure that into some kind of fund or SPV so that creditors get all the benefit from those assets. We'll see what actually ends up happening there.
Okay, thanks, Simon. But final question: how, in your best guess, what do you think is the time period? Are we talking? We're looking at June, July, maybe, when we can actually get some of our precious coins back?
I think that's a reasonable time frame. So the key deadlines that are coming up is the auction was meant to be completed this week, but that's now been pushed where it ends approximately, don't quote me on this, about 28th of January or something like that. We've got the examiner report on the 17th of January, which investigates misrepresentation and sell market token manipulation, and tax issues as well. And then on the 15th of February, we have the end of this whole standalone reorg concept. And then after that, the threat of a UCC takeover and whatever their plan may be. So if you look at the bid, it ends in approximately January, which I think is the most likely process. Then I think it takes approximately 3 to 6 months to execute. So depending on who ends up distributing tokens, then yeah, I think you're looking at a Q2 process at best, I think.
Okay, thanks
More
for
likely
the questions.
Q3, I think.
All right, next speaker is Peter. Peter, can you hear us? All right, we'll go to Manny. Let's try Manny again.
Hey, so it's been a while since I've been on one of these. Good to see everyone again. So I just wanted to second sort of like what I'm seeing, because I'm in the listening to depositors all day, Earn depositors, in the Earn Telegram group, which you should join if you're not already a member. Just search for the Celsius Earn Telegram group. But I'm seeing that sort of what Simon said, that there's not a whole lot of energy right now or appetite to, for example, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in our own legal fees to fight this behemoth of a machine to make it just slightly more likely that they do something like Simon's bid. And it's really frustrating because the whole process is designed to tap people out, to tire them, to as Simon said, we're forced to spend our own funds to do these ad hocs, and then the machine uses the estate's money to fight us, and to burn through whatever funds we can raise. So it's just a very frustrating process. But what I am hearing is an appetite to make sure that we preserve claims against insiders. So I wanted to remind everyone that the deadline to file your claims form is January 3rd. And unless that changes, which I heard it might, but we can't count on it, you should go to Stretto and check that out. And I've confirmed that you can upload your claim form through Stretto, and at the end, there's a place to attach a PDF, and you can put, as David Adler says, not legal advice, I'm not a lawyer, but you can put your claims into that. And what I'm hearing is that it shouldn't actually delay the reorg, but that it should help, help preserve claims against insiders. So yeah, that's kind of one thing I wanted to make sure to put on everyone's radar. And then just to sort of second that, that's kind of what I'm hearing. I don't really have a question, but if people have a question for me or something, I'm happy, or we can just chat. But that's kind of all I wanted to say.
Yeah, feel free to stay up, Manny, in case, because Manny's been, I think do you want to share a bit about what you were up to with the moderator? How did that work out?
Oh, the mediator. Yeah, that's true.
Mediator,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, no.
Mediator.
So I did file a motion. So one thing actually that I would also point out is in court tomorrow, and you still have 2.5 hours to register for court. So if you want to register for court, I can tweet out how to register for court shortly. But basically, I have a motion for a Chapter 11 mediator. So the idea there is you bring in perhaps a retired judge or an active judge or another another sort of experienced bankruptcy practitioner who helps the parties come to the table and work out a lot of their issues. Now, I've heard from some of the lawyers in this case that they wish this had happened a lot earlier in the case, because it might have helped resolve some of these disputes and not keep us in Chapter 11 as long. But I am hoping the motion can be granted so that we can raise certain issues and put pressure on Celsius around some of the issues that we've been talking about today. But also, there's lots of costly issues coming up, like all the litigation on clawbacks, all of the corner cases of Earn, which, I know a lot of people think, oh, Earn's going to be resolved. I think there may be a decision that resolves it about as much as custody is resolved, which is that it says, yeah, in general, it's property of the estate with all these carve-outs and defenses, and then everybody go litigate your carve-out and defense. Well, that's not really going to get us out of Chapter 11 quickly enough. So the hope is we can work out some of these issues to not just keep burning through money. And the same with the custody issues, like the clawbacks and a lot of other issues. But hopefully we could also insert into that some of the issues around making sure we preserve recoveries against insiders. because, you know, I don't know that we can trust the UCC to do that. But anyway, I do encourage people, come to court tomorrow, speak out in favor of the motion. The custody ad hoc has filed something in support of the motion. Loans either has or is going to. And also some earn customer with a lawyer filed something. There's been some pro ses. So it actually has a decent amount of support. And I think it's also a good way to have the judge thinking about the broader case and how we get out rather than just thinking about each piecemeal issue when there's like 10 issues that are unresolved. I wish he'd like listened. I don't know if he ever watched your video, Simon. I know that Kirkland watched it and that the UCC watched it. The one you'd made for the judge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it pushes things along. I'm
I'm not sure, but yeah, but they watched it. I just wanted to pass that on if you didn't know that. Yeah.
That's funny. How much did they charge us to watch it?
It's probably how long was the video? I mean, if the partners watched it and you put four lawyers watching it, then it's probably $8,000 an hour to watch your video. So,
oh Jesus, sickening.
By the way, one other funny thing about court, I'll just say, is just an entertaining thing, is that the judge has been reading his decisions from the bench, and I would never say this in court out of respect to him, but there's like 150 lawyers there, and they're billing us like $1,500 an hour, so you do the math, but like if he spends 45 minutes reading us a decision, it could cost the estate like, $150,000 or something.
Jeez. All right, thanks a lot, Manny. Anyone else want to come up and ask some stuff?
Yeah, let's bring up Moontime.
Doesn't have to be a question either. It can be a comment from your experience of it.
Yeah, Moontime, are you there?
How you doing, Simon?
I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, well, I've been better, obviously, like many others. Firstly, thank you for everything you're doing. It's been, it's been a tough year, but having someone like yourself fighting our corner gives us all a little bit of hope. My question is, I suppose, regarding on the loan side of things. I'm still can't get my head around how it's going to work. Say, for example, if you're talking about 50% coming back, like somebody like myself, I got into crypto in 2020, and it's been really loads of ups and downs since then, and learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes, but also did some good things throughout that time. But what I did, looking back, was really naively I did the thing of taking loans, thinking that tax-wise that's a good idea. I'm not looking at selling my Bitcoin, my Ethereum. Celsius seems the safest place to keep it, and I took substantial amounts out in loans. Because I was playing the long game.
Just to comment on it, you didn't know that when you put your money as collateral, it was being rehypothecated by an illegal bank, and there was no representations of how they're going to invest it, and therefore your collateral was used to indirectly allow you to leverage your life based upon a non-disclosure, non-compliant, non-suitability based security. So now we know that. Sorry to give all the jargon, but that's what happened. You thought you were just simply putting your funds there, and it was being used as collateral, and you were paying interest, and that interest was going to go to you were paying interest, and that interest was going to go to somebody.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it was a 0% interest loans as well. So I'm looking at it and going, wow, this is amazing. But again, when I say naively, because obviously looking at it now and learning and listening to people like yourself, it's like, well, I mean, I really, looking at it, I should have only have ever really allowed maximum 10% of my net worth or in that. But I really, I was completely into crypto at that stage. And Bitcoin, if I'm like, okay, then I'm prepared to wait, take my time. I trust Celsius, believe in it. Watched a lot of the AMAs, brought family and friends into this, and I was, it's been a tough year, not just financially, but mentally. I can't explain it. It's like you trust someone, and even though you've never met that person, you just there's a humiliation kind of feeling, and also the fact that you've brought other people in is yeah, it's been
Yeah,
difficult to try and
it's
get
rough,
on
man.
balance with that.
Well,
But
we
sorry,
were all duped, and before we go into your actual specifics, we were all duped. But I'm hoping the friendships that we've made as a result of this process. I've met some remarkable characters, even the ones that troll me and hate me. That some really interesting characters, and I really hope that as we get to the other side of this process, we're all just gonna have built some friendships, relationships, even though they're online. They're not the same as the real ones that you'll be celebrating over Christmas. But I think maybe something very special will come from these different types of communities and relationships that have been built through this process. So I'm trying to think of the hopeful thing that comes from that. But I have certainly met some of the most interesting people and people that I'll remember for the rest of my life, no matter what happens.
no, well said, and also just the learning process as well has been wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't come from a financial background, but the last 2-3 years have just been, it's like a crash course in.
Yeah, but you definitely know the difference between debt, equity, tokens, securities, like banking. Like you probably really, I'm telling you, you know more about finance than I did when I mastered up to economics.
Wow. No, thanks, Simon. I mean, okay, so I'll get to my question. So what I'm trying to understand is somebody like myself. I mean, I'm probably 90%. I'm 6 figures in. There's a substantial amount for myself and my family, and I'm just trying to get my head around what could potentially come back. With regards to the loan side, it's okay. They have my collateral, my Bitcoin, my ETH, but obviously I've got to pay amount to get that. But I just don't understand how that works.
My best
what
guess
they keep,
again.
what I get.
Yeah, I don't have any insider information, but my best guess of where I think this goes is that in the bidding process, you find a new home, someone that can service those loans, or there's an entity that doesn't want to service them, but maybe gives you the choice of either walking away from your loan or receiving your collateral back, and some kind of negotiation around that. I don't know. Is Ronan here? I know Tone's here. Tone.
I saw him earlier. I mean,
come on, Ronan, you're letting the team down. Where is he?
I can speak briefly to it because I follow their Telegram. But basically, they're in talks with, like, for example, Abra.
Yeah.
That could maybe buy the loan book, and then in the past, when we've sort of had hypothetical talks about what might happen, it's possible they could do something to increase the interest rates and increase the terms of the loans and other things to maybe help people be more whole, or maybe bring more value back to the estate, so we don't have to litigate, or you do litigate and you try to get 100% back. I mean, there's different options, but I think at the end of the day, you should check out the loans ad hoc and maybe join, because you have most of your money in loans. But, like, basically, it's unknown, right? But, like, there's conversations happening where they're trying to come up with solutions.
Yeah. So I think you will get a solution. There are other companies that can take this on. I mean, our industry's been completely hit. My concern is around what companies do with collateral. But if you're taking over a loaning process, maybe you don't need to do anything with that collateral other than keep it there, because essentially you never lent the money in the first place. So we will figure that one out. But yeah, unfortunately, it's more uncertainty for you until we get to the other side of the bidding process. You'll either be given the opportunity to continue to service a loan, renegotiate an interest rate, or give up the collateral and just keep the money that you borrowed, or something along those lines, or just find a new home with a renegotiation. I think.
Hey, Simon,
I think something's going to happen.
Sorry, I heard.
Hey, Ronan.
Was there a request?
What's your best guess as an advice for what might happen to someone that's got a 0% interest loan at the moment with Celsius?
Well, I mean, ideally, we take all the Bitcoin, we take all the ETH, we convert that into the most pristine asset available, which is Cell token, Then we wrap that cell token as collateral. We wrap that in CXL, and then we stake it. And I'm not talking about being made whole over time. I'm talking about being made so whole so quickly that people aren't even going to know what hit them, because that's what Chapter 11 Kelvin cold storage is all about. And I just want to say thank you.
100x.
I want to say thank you to the previous management for putting us in this position and making us safe from the market turmoil. So that's what I think for loans. Any others?
Yeah. So what? It's 100% on sale. Yeah.
I would say, yeah, for every sell you have, you're looking back at minimum 200 cents on the dollar. But in all seriousness, Simon, I know the loan issue is very interesting. I was sorry, I was just on a other call. I had to pop off the space. But the issue with the loan collateral, there are specific, as you know as well as I do. There's been money services, money transmitter licenses. Did Celsius have all the necessary licenses to be able to basically operate as a bank and provide loans? And, we've reached out to the debtor in Kirkland & Ellis. We'd love to deal with the loans issue. They've dealt with custody. They've dealt with earn. We want to deal with loans, and we want to, reach a solution that everyone can agree to. But I think that the debtor, and especially Kirkland & Ellis, is very concerned with providing the cleanest exit to previous management, and we represent a thorn in the side to that happening. And at the end of the day, everyone just wants their coins back. But if that's not going to happen, like, previous management is going to be held accountable for the fraud, the incompetence, the mistakes made. And we've asked for a copy of the whatever the insurance policy that C-suite executives have, because that's also a big part of all of this. And I know that you're a shareholder in every major Bitcoin company in existence, obviously. And we talk a lot with Abra. We're trying to get a solution that is going to work for borrowers, it's going to work for earn, it's going to work for custody, it's going to work for everyone to get out of this mess. Because, like you said, this is a process where the yield goes straight to people who have no money on the platform. The lawyers, the restructuring professionals, everybody under the sun except for creditors is going to get paid. And the only issue, Simon, I take with your opening monologue is there was one guy, and he is still listening. He's my man Rupi out of Costa Rica. He was actually calling for, and he was calling in good faith, a liquidation from day one, saying that this is all just going to drag out and there's going to be less money available. And if we liquidate on day one, get as much coins back to people as possible, and then we can look at sales of the mining business, sales of GK8. We might be better off, but it's a very loans.
Yeah, there was definitely a community calling for Chapter 7, and it turns out they were right.
Yeah, no kidding. In the earn group, it was a big debate, and I would say it was about 80% who wanted a restructure and 20% who wanted a liquidation. Although the funny thing about the liquidation folks, who were right in a sense, however, a lot of them supported FTX as a bidder. And had we had that crisp liquidation, we would have ended up like Voyager with the bid and then having to cancel it and go back to the drawing board. So I kind of suspect that, although nobody could have known this at the time, and they were technically correct, that in reality we'd have just ended up in Chapter 11 for just as long, because Voyager kind of filed it around the same time, had the FTX bid, and then had to go back and get the Binance bid. So what a strange and unforeseeable turn of events.
Yeah. So who got it right, Ronan? Okay, cool. Alrighty. Anyone else got any? We'll leave everyone up. Anyone else want to say something?
Yep. Ramsey, you want to go?
You can go first. I'll go after you.
All right. Hello, everybody. Peace and love for Christmas to all your families. I wanted to ask Moneyman to convince me and everybody else to file a proof of claim. Every creditor who has no error in the amount of their coin, why should they file a proof of claim to preserve right against the insider? Can you make a concise explanation to convince everybody the utility to file a proof of claim, please?
I can, with the caveat that I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. And even when David Adler talks about it, it's not legal advice for you. It's just general advice. So the first thing I will say is I don't want to assume you're outside the United States, but I heard your accent. So one thing I know is that there are issues with if you're maybe subject to clawbacks and you're concerned about jurisdiction issues, then that's one thing to consider. So there's a separate, and that for US people, my understanding is that doesn't apply. But if you're overseas and you withdrew assets, you may want to talk to other overseas people about that before you file a claim. That said, my understanding is that whatever you put on your proof of claim is potentially your only claims against the company and potentially also derivative claims against insiders like executives. And so what you want to do is put claims for things like fraud, misrepresentation. I think the loans group has a draft already, and I'm working on going to work to see if we can tweak that draft a bit for earned people. Maybe get some limited legal advice to help with that, but as a template, not as a like what you should put on your individual claim. David Adler's been clear that it's sort of everyone needs to put their own claim. So like, for example, for me, I have an issue where I paid off a loan after April 15th in the United States. And the coin should have gone into custody. So I'll be pursuing that claim at some point. So I'll somehow find a way to put that onto my claim form. But then I'm also going to put things about fraud, misrepresentation, other sort of torts, just to make sure to preserve those claims. And then people had asked, is that going to, lead to delays? Maybe a little bit, but it should also help preserve these claims that can, my understanding is, like from what David had said, is that the claims can then be signed over to the estate, and that there's some weird issue in New York with claims where it's like one wrongdoer can't sue another wrongdoer. So in this case, both like Alex Mashinsky and Celsius are wrongdoers. So it's kind of a weird rule, but it's like Celsius can't sue Alex necessarily in New York. So it's like, but like we can make those claims and then sign them over to the estate. Here's one reason to file. It seems to really upset Alex when we talk about this. And he was tweeting, oh, don't do that, like clawback equities first or something. But I mean, basically, obviously, they don't want us to make these claims. They want to make these things go away. Yeah, that's a reason. And then, if you can potentially bring charges later, but I wouldn't assume that you have to make these claims yourself. Again, not legal advice, but my understanding is maybe as part of a settlement, these things can be signed over to the liquidation trust or something like that.
Yeah, it's very complicated. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, so to put it in simple layman terms, do you feel that if we fill a proof of claim for fraud and misrepresentation, it can lead to insider clawback, and so it increase the estates, and so it will increase or lower the haircut? In other words, for a basic earned creditor. He put his email, he has an email back with his list of coins, he sees it's correct. So what is his interest to file a proof of claim is to get the insider clawback to increase the estate value and lower his haircut. Is that a good reason?
That's the idea. Yeah, that's my understanding. And again, that's just from secondhand information. So I've been on other calls like with David where that's been basically what he's said. So I'm kind of passing that on, but yes, my understanding is by making these claims, it preserves them, and that potentially it could lower our haircut in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I can use the time for Simon speaking about recovery real quick, we have an hearing tomorrow, 20 December. Next date is the bar date for 3 January proof of claim. Then we have the big hearing 24 January for the sale hearing. And then the end of the exclusivity, 15 February 2023, sorry, for the end of the exclusivity of Celsius. So this is the date where something should happen. Now, we see Voyager being bought out. Chapter 7 in kind, it means they get back their coin with the haircut and no recovery. So the whole point of the chapter 11 is to have a plan of recovery based on revenue stream. So, so Simon had some plan B. Do you believe it's feasible with the illiquid asset, the staking, the mining, to have enough revenue stream to offer a recovery for the haircut, which is 50% at least over 5 billion assets in 1 year? I don't see a recovery possible in a timely manner, Simon. So can you speak
No,
about
absolutely not. The coins that are stakeable are your coins. They're our coins. I don't think any company should be taking our coins and using the stakes in order to fund their startup, and that's the concept that you're just referring to. If you think about it, if you get your coins back, then you could stake them yourself, and you could use that for your own recovery. So why should Celsius take those coins and us have to reinvest them in order to try and fill a hole for themselves, but where they have the option of paying their salaries and paying everyone else? I'm okay with investing in a company. If you give me a full and transparent business plan and you say how much funding you need and you put together a projection and a forecast, then that's free market. What I would do is I would look to I'm not talking about Celsius the company. If Celsius the new reorg wants to pitch us all for further investment in their new startup, then they should start from scratch and do that. They shouldn't force us to invest our coins, fight us in court, and say the coins are theirs, and then expect us to reinvest them. That's not something I'm going to sign up for. And that's the concept of a reorg. However, if we want a recovery, I only know of one way of recovering, and that is to give everyone their coins back, and then issuing everyone their pro rata share of all the assets that were bought with our money. And if any of those assets perform, and one of the companies becomes a very valuable company in the future, then potentially that equity value could fill our hole. And so that's what I'm still fighting for, which is a bid that gives everyone their coins in custody and shares in all the assets that were bought with our money. And instead, they may sell those assets for cash. That's Celsius's choice, and Celsius control the process. So the exclusivity process is really designed around Celsius deciding who wins the bid, and I think that they choose who wins the bid based upon who protects their ass the most, and that's the process. So does that incentivize getting the maximum result for creditors? I don't think so, and that's why I think Chapter 11 is actually a scam. I think it should have been Chapter 7 from the beginning, but with lobbying for payment in kind, or a Chapter 11 liquidation with the US trustee. So if you look at FTX has got somebody not representing the best interest of FTX, the company. You got John Ray, who's there to get the best result for creditors. And you can see, now I know FTX is like a seriously different situation, but you can see the difference, right, between John Ray clearly is not doing anything to protect FTX and doing everything to see what assets can be recovered for creditors. I don't feel that same energy with Celsius. I see a process designed whereby Celsius is acting in their interest, not in our interest.
Just
Yeah.
really quickly, Simon. Like, so just, I mean, at this point, the only party that's supposed to hold this process accountable on our behalf and hold the debtor accountable on our behalf is the UCC and the representation. So, you know, to me, like the law firm working, you know, to protect the debtor and get these sign-offs, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They want to increase their name in the crypto space or whatever. But the UCC, I mean, we obviously don't know all the details, but yeah, given how things are playing out, like it's really the UCC that is supposed to be holding the debtor accountable, and I know they've done that with the deadline on February, mid-February, which is just good. But yeah, I guess assessing their performance is a little bit tricky because we don't know all the details and all the behind closed doors talks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, a little frustrating so far. What we've been seeing is, in my opinion, anyways.
One thing about that, actually, Plan C, is that, you know, we might want to bring back calls for that sort of steering committee-ish group or something and talk more about this stuff, because my mediator motion actually caused the UCC to reach out about sort of what people would want in a bid and stuff, but I wanted to actually get them thoughts from across the community that are sort of more representative of what creditors in general want. And I don't know exactly what kind of process we want to propose, but I think, you know, we could propose that they meet with some group of people regularly where we make our demands or something like that.
Well,
I don't really know. I feel like we should talk about how we
y-
engage the UCC.
I agree with you, Manny, because we already have that group where we have two representatives from all the Telegram groups, right? So, you know, if one or two people from all those groups, at least one of them, maybe just one person from each group can get on a call with the UCC, or have our own individual call and then bring forward, you know, the condensed version to the UCC, probably to save the time and expenses. Yeah, I think that's valuable. So we'll talk offline maybe about that, getting a call done in the next week, well, Christmas, but yeah, as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the new year, I think they're open to those conversations. What they've communicated a bunch of stuff to me. I don't know if I have your email, I'll DM you, but like, we should, you know, try to narrow the issues and be as efficient as possible, basically, and we can take this offline. But they definitely, to the extent we can present something of a unified voice and where we can outline where the creditors disagree, that's fine too. So we can be like, 5 out of 7 groups agree with this. Here's who disagrees. Everybody agrees on these issues. I think they appreciate that. And we can definitely communicate those things. And then we can talk about public accountability strategies too, because, you know, we don't have to, I think doing it behind closed doors allows them to sort of brush us off more. So there's definitely ways we can increase the pressure, like, for example, in the courtroom, or, you know, if they're not paying attention or listening. And there is a time and place to meet with Celsius too, but they do have their client that they're trying to protect. And I imagine they have certain bottom lines, like they're going to fight for releases. And obviously, if we oppose that, then we should pursue that through the UCC and through court. And that doesn't necessarily mean like we could get lawyers to help, or it could just mean communications, PR, media, lots of letters to the court. So yeah, let's kick that off at some point and see what we want to spin up.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Manny. We'll talk offline. Thanks a lot.
Okay, Ramsey's got another question. Ramsey, you there?
Yeah, I had one question, and I did want to comment on one thing Simon said. So Simon, you mentioned how, like, you know, assets in the future could be you know, a lot greater than they are now. If you're referring to like the mining business, even if the assets are a lot greater in the future, I mean, you got to think about the depreciation of the machines as well. The machines, I mean, they're only good for the ASICs. They're only good for like 2 to 3 years. You know, by the time we're in an actual bull run again and Bitcoin blows up, those machines probably be worthless. So it's in my opinion, and any miner's opinion, it would be best just to liquidate everything. But That's
Yeah,
all.
sure. The point is, I mean, I am a shareholder in mining companies, and you know, the whole argument of, you know, Riot and Marathon, they were like $250 million companies that in the peak of a bull market went up to like $4 to $6 billion of equity valuation. That does exist, and mining is an industry. I'm not saying that these assets are the right assets and this team is the right team. What I'm saying is there is a mining company that we've spent significant amounts of money on. And if we were issued those shares, and if the management team weren't the right management team, I've got plenty of people that are 100% competent, that control much of the Bitcoin hash power at the moment, that could totally take on those ASICs and give us something and do something with it. If we were given full and transparent information, because there are mining companies that are public and there are prospectuses and the information can be modeled and presented, then us as creditors can decide if we want to put up the funding, or it can raise funding in the market. So you know, we've even built the technology at Bank to the Future to be able to facilitate that, where people can invest their claims in a rights issue should they choose, as long as you know, we're issued the equity. So I'm not saying that it is. We're operating off, or creditors are operating off incomplete information now, and you know, the investment banks can model out the impact of certain funding injections and various other things. But I'm very, very familiar with mining. The issue is that we've invested some cost into the mining operation that can't be reversed. And so we either accept cash now and lock in the loss, or we receive the shares, get full transparent information, and decide if we want to fund the business or the market wants to fund it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. That's what I understand that. But what I was getting at is, by the time we actually get those shares and everything issued and we get equity in this.
No, that could be done in this bidding process if the bidding process would allow for it. We could issue those shares at Bank to the Future to 650,000 creditors. Those shares could be issued, and a rights offering could be done within 1 week if they're willing to provide the S1, which they already had, that they were submitting to the SE in order to take the company public. That could be done within a couple of weeks if the process was open to any kind of financial innovation.
Gotcha. Okay. If Celsius was smart, they would have invested into solar or something else. You know.
Well, I mean, you know, mining's a challenging business. The point is that it was fraudulently invested. If our funds were, you know, we didn't, you know, if you want to invest in a diversified pool of assets, then you need to set up a collective investment scheme and comply with the Investment Advisors Act, and then you need to give full disclosure and ensure that only the right people are investing. And so that's the point here, that all of this was illegal. And those that, you know, some people are just in denial about that fact. They think there's nothing illegal here. I can't comprehend how many times the facts need to be presented. And even, you know, the regulators say in court, this was an illegal MAC, this was an illegal securities offering, this was an illegal custody service. Custody was created for the fact that they were given cease and desist orders and demanded that you're not allowed to offer these securities to investors. And then the withhold service was created because they didn't have the licenses in order to offer a regulated custody service in those states. So I don't quite understand the mindset of those that are stuck in a certain belief, that think that there was no wrongdoing here and we were taken down by SDF.
Completely wrong.
At this point, I think pretty much everyone would agree on that. Like even prominent Celsius former employees have stated that they said this looked like a hedge fund, the way it operated. So I think everyone pretty much agrees at this point that they were operating a legal hedge fund. I mean, it just it's hard to deny that. But yeah, it's good to mention because people kind of forget. Like a lot of us don't understand, some of the stuff you're saying, Simon, as far as we don't have the background. Obviously, this has been a very educational process, and a lot of us have learned these things. But it's good you keep repeating some of these important things because, for people thinking like, oh, the examiner report has to come out to prove that there was wrongdoing. Well, we already know, based on just the facts of the misrepresentation from the videos and the fact that it was, hedge fund. There's already stuff without anything coming out in the examiner report that is enough for a lot of these charges to be brought forward. So just wanted to say that. And the last thing before I stop talking is just tomorrow I'm going to be doing a post-hearing spaces after the hearing. So yeah, we usually do those. So just if anyone's available, feel free to join that, and we'll discuss what's discussed in court tomorrow.
Okay, cool. If you create it, I don't know if you're able to create it, but you can pin it to the top and we can all set a reminder if you like.
Hey, Simon.
Hey.
Hey, I got a question for you. Last time I talked to you on one of these Twitter spaces, you had told me that the equity that I had invested with Bank to the Future was worthless. And then I heard you and Alex talking, and it turns out that wasn't the case.
Well, if the equity isn't worthless, then you know something I don't know about.
So you're still saying it is worthless?
Well, the whole process, if the preference equity holders manage to turn it into something, which the UCC said that they will violently oppose, and everything I can see is that everything's going to be given to creditors rather than anything left over for equity shareholders.
Okay, so
that's
no
what
matter what
that's
you
what
do,
the court will tell us.
no matter what you do in this entire situation, the equity on Bank to the Future, the original equity, will be worthless.
I've seen nothing that tells me otherwise.
Okay, I haven't been able to understand all the process of everything going on, and I just wanted to make that clear.
So
Okay.
one quick thing on equity. I mean, look, the preferred shareholders, which I don't know, Simon, are you a preferred or a common shareholder?
No, Banks of the Future's ordinary shareholders, so
yeah,
it's the preferred shareholders.
So yeah, there's a process. The preferred shareholders are trying to argue that Celsius customers don't have claims against every entity, and that legal issue has been teed up for January. But both Celsius and the UCC take the position that we do have claims against all of the entities. So I think the very high probability is that we win. However, my thinking all along has been that they're trying to get a settlement. And I won't be surprised if after the bar date, they kind of announce some kind of settlement to avoid this kind of litigation, which, that the lawyers in charge of the preferred Series B are some of the best bankruptcy lawyers in the country, and they have a decent amount to spend on legal fees. So while I'd be disappointed to see a settlement, if it's a small enough amount and it gets us out of Chapter 11, I think they should probably be included in mediation. And I think all along there was some game to give them something, right? So I guess we'll see. But I don't think that they're going to get very much, though. That's kind of my gut.
Yeah, so they're kind of, if you are a shareholder, they're leading the charge in representing that. And you'd probably be tagged along to that.
Okay, Simon, how much longer do you want to go for?
If there's more interesting stuff to discuss, I also wanted to give a shout out to Aaron Bennett for recording Alex Majinsky's deleted comments. It was an absolute shit show if you managed to watch it. Alex, again, tried to say that I'm working against everybody's interests and that everything's my fault and I deserve a big F you.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. I made sure that was submitted in my filing so Judge Glenn would see it too, which I'm sure will annoy Kirkland. I hope it does.
Yeah, he accidentally left, I think, comments turned on, or maybe he was testing the water around his loyal support, around his his sell token holders and seeing if he could rally some support. And I think it led to 200 different comments of an absolute shit show. So I don't think Alex Maszynski will be leaving comments on again. But afterwards, he deleted the tweet when he didn't like what he saw. So, you let it rip. You say whatever you want to say. But I don't think he liked what he read. So the tweet was deleted. But Aaron recorded it in his latest video update today and shared some of it. So shout out to Aaron for all the amazing content you created throughout this whole process.
Okay, let's go with next speaker, Flying Treasure, please.
Hey, I got a question for Manny. Hey, Manny, you had mentioned you guys are working on that form, like the kind of template form for those who are in Earn. I'm on you guys' Telegram. I sent you an email a couple times a while ago. I haven't been checking in on that because I've just been too busy with regular life. But I just wanted to see when you thought that might be ready, because I'd love to utilize something like that. And I know we got like 15 days left to submit, so just wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, I don't know is kind of the answer. I mean, we will have something. So we'll at least take what Loans has, make some edits. If we're able to get it together over the holidays, which is an unknown, we might be able to have a lawyer look at it. It's not going to be legal advice for you as an individual.
Sure.
And my not legal advice for you is to file something that makes some kind of claims beyond just your coins if you want to preserve them by the 3rd, because you can always amend your claim later, which is another thing David Adler says. And by the way, Kirkland and Ellis in their own paper, you want to know why to file a claim. If you're a US, you probably should file it. But look, I'm not a lawyer, but I'll tell you this. Kirkland and Ellis in their own published paper basically says you should file a claim and that you can amend it. So that's their advice in an article. They don't want you to in this case because they don't want you preserving being able to do an individual claim like that. But they definitely say that in general, most creditors, and I think this would apply to US creditors in particular, because we're all stuck under the jurisdiction of the US court anyway. I don't, look, again, not legal advice, but I don't think US people have anything to lose filing a claim form that you can amend later and putting some claims about misrepresentation and other things. And Loans already has a pretty good list of stuff. David Adler says to allege with some particularity fraud. So what that might mean is you attach AMAs you relied on, that kind of thing. If you have a contract claim like I do, lay out your case, pretty basic claim, and say, what your claim is. That's more unusual. That's like
that's a little
case.
bit of the questions I have about is like, yeah, I've got plenty of things I could say. Hey, I watched the AMAs and these, this and that, but I'm just concerned about, if I don't write this sentence particularly, or if I don't state these specific things, that they'll say, oh, well, he's not really making a strong enough case for this line item or this line item.
Here's the distressing part about the process. The only way you're going to know the answer to that is if you hire your own lawyer and spend your own money on it. So this is the distress of the process. Every deadline has been pushed, like the bidding deadline, the standalone reorg, the exclusivity, everything has been pushed so that we can pay extra for them to protect themselves and Celsius in this whole process. And yet we have to pay for our own legal counsel in order to work over Christmas when everyone else has been paid in order to engage in this process. Pushed all their deadlines, didn't meet their deadlines, get paid more because they pushed their deadlines. And then our deadline of 3rd of January, we've got to bloody start looking at completing legal forms over the holiday period while they all enjoy their Christmas that was paid for by us. It's pretty sickening.
And there's
one thing I will commit to is talking to David Adler today about whether we can file a motion to extend the bar date a little bit, because I think it's pretty absurd. I think they need to extend it by like a week at least, so we don't screw up people's holidays. And this partly depends if they're gonna update the online form, which I need to get more information on. But right now, we all got to file unless something changes. We got to file by the 3rd. And look, I've talked to some lawyers who are like, they don't want to represent individuals with claims forms. That isn't to say you can't hire a lawyer to do it. They may charge you more because of liability, but it's essentially like, if they leave something off, they don't want to be responsible. That doesn't mean, again, that you can't find a lawyer to do it. I'm sure if your account's large enough and you pay enough, you can find someone to do it for you. They may make you sign a waiver, I don't know, but point is, look, you either can get a lawyer if you can afford one, but otherwise not legal advice, do your best. And yes, you may leave off something and then you can deal with it, but I think you may be given a chance to improve your form. I don't really know.
Yeah, and I think the point is that this whole thing could be one big nothing burger, but no one can commit to it because no one wants to be held responsible for saying the wrong thing. So unfortunately, it's just the nature of this situation. No one freaking knows. And when you're dealing with litigation, anything you say and someone else holds you accountable to that could lead harm to whoever said it. So unfortunately, you're not going to get any certainty in this process. You just got to do what feels right for you and what makes financial sense for you. And no one can give you the advice you need unless you're willing to invest in the top counsel that can think through all the different moves.
And any template we give is not going to be legal advice. It's going to be a template that you can pick and choose and adapt to your own situation. And if you're not able to get counsel and you miss things, then that's just the way that it is. That's just the way it has to be.
Yeah. All right. Has anyone got anything particularly interesting? I'm going to close this off at 2 hours. So I think we've got
Hey, Simon, may I speak?
Go for it. Yeah.
I want to know something that my name is Tyson. I go by Tyson.
Hey, Tyson.
I want to know something that most of us have been thinking and want answers to. It is that, is Alex going to pay? Is this man who has hurt countless people, is he going to pay for his crimes for what he did to people? And or is he just going to simply hide behind his lawyers forever and escape the what he's done? I want him to pay for what he's done, similar to that of SBF. I don't want this man to get away with this. So, there's a lot of people hurting right now, and we need justice. We need answers. And we don't want to see someone like this get away with what he's done, because he has completely misled this community. He's misled, everyone into thinking that they were something that they were not. So this man must pay. He has to.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to know my hunch? And we'll leave on this one.
Yes.
I just want to believe that there is something in this universe looking out for us, because we've pretty much lost everything in this whole process. But I do want to believe that the examiner, the regulators, the judge, and this may be pure delusion, were all looking out for our best interest, because they knew that we have to go through a certain process. And the process was that we get through the bidding process, and that allows us to get access to our coins in a reasonable way. From there, the right to pursue additional legal action is maintained, and the examiner report is coming out at the right time, not for us to be our own worst enemies. And I think they strategically planned how the examination report was going to be. They just said, okay, the first bit is to kind of resolve the whole custody case. The second bit is where you've got through the bulk of the bidding, you've got through some of the bidding process, and there is, a recovery. Granted, it may be 50%, whatever it may be. Then you have this examination report, which you've paid for, and you get to, through some process collectively, we get to get a return on investment on that report. And the return on investment comes from pursuing unjust enrichment, whatever happens, insider clawbacks, all those things. This community is not going to personally, I don't think, allow Alex Mizhinsky to fulfill his outrageous goal of thinking that he can come back to this industry and blame everything on SBF and allow us to lose our money. That's not going to happen. That's delusion. And so I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I just believe that as a community, that there is something. I've always been a very lucky person. I've always been guided, and we've lost most of this process. But I want to believe that the process is being engineered in a way where the justice that you crave will be found, because I think that they were just looking out for us to try and get some of our coins back. Because if this was made a Ponzi scheme, we would be here for bloody 10 years trying to figure out, like Mt. Gox and like Madoff, 10 to 15 years, how the hell to get some of our coins back. And they would just fight, they would burn through the whole process. So we have to exercise some kind of patience. I can't guarantee it. I don't know what's going to happen, but there's some kind of force that I think we will have, some kind of justice served, and those insider clawbacks will happen. The examination report will reveal a lot, and at the very least, this person will not be a part of our industry in the future. And every time he tweets, he gets 200 people that say you don't deserve to be a part of our industry or part of our sector. But I think there's more to come, and we all have to recover. We all have to move on and find the internal peace in ourselves as well. And so the best that we can do as a group is that do the best that we can possibly do in this process. And whatever way the chips fall, whatever way the universe throws us, we figure out how to, be the best that we can be, learn what we can learn, rebuild what we can rebuild, and ensure that we channel our energy in the right direction. And the right direction, might be to ensure that this process does serve the justice that we want as a community. And that's all we can do. I think a couple of things I can just say in the closing is we all have to find our own internal peace with whatever the outcome is, that it doesn't affect you, your relationship with your loved ones. You come to peace with whatever outcome happens. You're going to be okay. We all have to think about what we're going to do to, rebuild. And you need to channel some energy into that. And I think collectively we're going to do, ensure that there's not that unjust enrichment. And there's a lot of tools and mechanisms that we can use as a community to ensure that any unjust enrichment comes back to us. And just have it be known that anything that Alex Mizhinsky is tweeting is the exact opposite of what we probably should be doing, because he does not like many of the things that we're saying. And he does not like many of the approaches, and everything he's saying, from my perspective, is about protecting his own ass, because that's all he cares about. So as a community, we will figure it out. We're in this together, but let's grow at peace with focusing on what's important to us, and continue engaging in this process until we figure it out.
Okay, I can live with that. And Simon, on one other note here, my brother, can I hold about 4 Bitcoin, my brother? Donate that to the Broke Black Man Society Foundation, please. I can use that, sir. You won't feel it at all.
All right, well, pin to the tweet, whatever it is that you're. If it's a good cause, then let us know about it, whatever's happening. I do want to say, I do apologize on behalf of certain community members for some of the comments that were made against women and what they called women and blacks. And I do want to, it was a very shocking comment that I saw, and I'm sure that you saw. And I just want to say,
let me elaborate on what you're talking about for those who don't know. Since you won't say it, I will say it. It was Zach. And anyone who's following this guy should definitely not follow this man. He is a sexist, a racist, and basically he is Alex Mashinsky's son. He probably talks to this guy on a daily basis. So basically,
That's
you know, there's a
figuratively, not
saying.
factually, right?
I'm not sure, but there's a saying that I don't want you guys to forget.
Zach has said he's talked to Alex numerous times since the bankruptcy, but we don't know how often. We know it's been a good amount of times. But sorry, continue.
Okay, but know this: the friend of my enemy is to my enemy. Never forget that. And that's all I gotta say.
Okay.
All
right.
I was, if I can have a quick moment, Simon. I saw that tweet that Zach made, and I was very, very disgusted about it. I'm originally from Africa. I moved here when I was age 22. I joined the U.S. Army. I joined the U.S. Air Force. I paid school for my associate degree, my bachelor degree, and my master degree, all in engineering. I'm a software engineer, and I'm making decent amount. I got screwed by Celsius, but that comment was very, very disgusting. Not all black people or any black person like free stuff. It's just not acceptable.
Yeah. Sorry, it makes me cringe. And it did to so many. So I'm just, I was just shocked by it. I thought it was like a Photoshop or a stitch up, but yeah, apparently it's authentic. So yes, we shall move on. But the things that you say in Twitter, they do last. And even if you delete your accounts, people take screenshots. And I only hope that people look back at some of the things that they said and apologize where apologies are needed, and learn and hopefully become bigger people as a result. But yeah. All right. So I think I want everybody to have just an absolutely amazing Christmas and New Year. I think it's a really important time for everybody to remember what's important in life. At the worst, I personally believe that 50% of our funds are going to come back in the next 6 months or so. We could be surprised. Now, I think it's all about managing expectations from here. If we go in with that, kind of belief that everything else could be a bonus, and maybe this process is going to surprise us and it's going to be better than what we think. But I think we all have deadlines. We know what comes next. And I think clarity is just an important part of the healing process. Just knowing what comes next, what the key deadlines are, and just having those expectations so people can plan around those things. I'm sure that there's going to be lots of different things that are thrown our way. But remember, I think we've been bonded around this experience, and I think there's going to be friends that you've made and community members that are going to share this moment for you for the rest of your life, and you've got to use it to be bigger and better. So I close off the way that I always close off. Always remember, you're alive at one of the most interesting and exciting times in financial history. Some are going to get really hurt, others are going to do really well, and we want to make sure that you're on the right side of that change. And I just believe that this process that we've been through in Celsius is going to be one of those moments where maybe you look back in 10 years and say, this was the defining moment when my life was made for the better as a result of the pain and suffering that I went through. And let's concentrate. Whether that happens or not is up to you. So how you react to this and what you do next is going to be the defining factor. The meaning that you attach to this is something that you decide. And no matter how crazy we get on Twitter, no matter how much the different emotions that we feel, we can't let it destroy us. We can only allow us to remember what's most important in life. And Christmas and New Year is a great time to set new goals, remember what's important, spend time with the ones that love you and that you love. So have a great Christmas and a happy New Year. See you on the other side in 2023.